Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Right. So I want to present my paper. Okay. So basically, the title of this paper is Nonlinear Impact of Institution Quality and FDI on Green GDP in OIC countries. So my name is Zakaria Lacheheb. Okay. This is the table of content of my presentation. So I will talk about introduction of institution quality, FDI, and green GDP in OIC countries, and then followed by literature review. I will just summarize of the literatures that I have been used in my study, and then the methodology that this study is augmented, mentioning the model, the methodology, the method, and then after that is followed by the result and discussion. Okay, and then at the end, okay, so it's the conclusion and policy recommendation. So we start with our introduction. So firstly, because our topic is about green GDP, so it's more on the environment. So pollutant comes from burning fossil fuels in cars, companies, houses, and power plants. So basically, this pollution is the leading environment contributor to the spread of illness and death at an early age. So this is basically according to the World Bank recent report in 2021. According to Han, 2019, so he said that environmental pollution has become a global problem. Okay, so basically there is no only one region or one country that is doing very well compared to other regions or other countries. And then collectively, the OIC countries are particularly vulnerable to these environment changes brought on by rising human activity, because of their limited resources and limited ability to adjust to environment changes. So we can take one example, for instance, Bangladesh as one member of OIC countries, so which is developing countries. Okay, so basically this Bangladesh as a leading, okay, so it's one of the first most polluted country. Okay, so here is the graph showing the world most polluted countries. We can see that Bangladesh, Pakistan, okay, number 3 is India, not in OIC countries, but going down to Afghanistan, number 4, Bahrain, number 5, okay, Kuwait, number 7, so UAE, number 9, so basically Nigeria, so basically those are the OIC countries. So we can see that the top or the most polluted countries, they are OIC countries. That's why our study is focused more on OIC countries. So basically in Bangladesh in 2022, ranked at the first, number 1, as the most polluted country in the world. Okay, so based on the graph in the next slide that I was mentioning now, this one, okay, so many OIC member countries are included, so such as Pakistan, Indonesia, Nigeria, and Bahrain, as I said. So the strong dependency of OIC countries on completely natural resources. Okay, so basically most of these developing countries, OIC countries, they are natural resources based. Okay, and inadequate ability to adapt with climate instability and extreme make them vulnerable. Okay, so basically this one is vulnerable to environment change, okay, and environment degradation. Therefore, the urgent need of sustainability that maintains OIC countries' environment conservation with the growth rate is important. So basically, on this introduction, that environment is very important, and then the most polluted countries are mainly, okay, so OIC countries, not all, but part of the OIC countries. So basically, if we want to reduce the environment degradation, because those countries are more based on natural resource space, so we have to reduce our production. This is not good on the other side of reducing our economic growth. So basically, that's why this study emphasizes more on green GDP. So green GDP, as the formula down here, is the total GDP minus the depletion. Okay, so minus environment resource cost, minus environment resources protection service fee. So this is according to Vegfi et al. 2015, this formula. Okay, so basically green GDP is not as the environment aspect only. So green GDP has two aspects. One is GDP, the other one is green. Okay, so one is the economic growth, production, productivity. Okay, and then the other side is green, means we have to concern about the environment. So basically, green GDP will give a very insightful indication of how do we maintain our growth, our GDP, at the same time looking at the environment part. Okay, so this one, as I already explained, so the figure one depicts the most polluted countries in the world. So this is basically on the World Air Quality Report, okay, to 2021. As illustrated in the figure, so you can see that most air polluted countries are OIC countries, okay, such as Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bahrain, and Kuwait. So as a result, the growth rates of these countries are incompatible with the preservation of the natural environment, resulting in adverse effect. So our objective and issues of this study is that real GDP or the normal GDP, okay, or traditional GDP, traditional economic growth indication, okay, so it does not take into account the damage caused by pollution, okay, whether it is air pollution, water pollution, okay, so basically different type of pollution is not included in our traditional economic growth, okay. So green GDP is just another method of calculating and assessing the monetary cost of social and environment harm brought on the country, okay, so by expanding their economy. So whether we have to expand our economy, we have to increase our production, okay, our GDP, but at the same time, we have to maintain or concern about environment. So environmental impacts of foreign direct investment is still not clear. So basically, this is based on Borga 2021. So many studies, they found that FDI is good for environment because FDI is associated with new technologies, okay? So basically, some studies, they argue, yes, FDI is good for environment, can brought new technology, can save the environment, but others, FDI can also harm the environment, okay? So basically FDI is investment. So basically it will lead to more growth. So we have more factories, okay, more CO2 emissions. These will have negative impact. So moreover, the government can influence environmental quality in both direct and indirect ways. So this one is basically according to Salman et al. 2019. They say that the government can intervene using their policies, okay, regulations, restrictions on some businesses that negatively impact the environment. So what happens is government, they can intervene, and then they can mitigate the effect of market failure. So basically, government means institution quality. So based on these two issues, FDI is not conclusive. And then based on Salman et al. In 2019, they said that government, they can impact directly and indirectly. So this study comes that this issue of having direct and indirect effect of institution quality, along with inconclusive results coming from FDI. So the main objective of this study is to examine the dynamic relationship between FDI, institution quality, and green GDP on IC countries. Not only direct, we are looking at the indirect one. So our significance of study of this research. So basically, I just put a three core significance. Okay, so the first one is this study is one of the only handful of studies that probe, okay, FDI, institution quality, and green GDP. Many studies before, they just focus on FDI on CO2 emission, FDI on environmental degradation, institution quality impact on environment. So basically, the study want to take out all this and focusing on production, GDP, and then environment at the same time. The second significance, this study also helps government to design national policies that how to develop the green economy in OIC countries, okay, because it's our sample study, and main concern on environment conservation. The last significance is this research would give a clear contribution to go green. Okay, so basically this term is comes out a few years ago. Okay, so basically one of the countries adopted is China. So we want to would give this insightful impact, okay, contribution to go green this term by taking into account the indirect role of institutional quality on green GDP. So this is the summary of my literature review. Okay, so I just highlighted some of the studies that they use different methods. Okay, meta-analysis, if we are talking about Dimina and Afson Bor in 2019, GMM, modified OLS, in panel of countries, okay, 2017. So we can see that there are some studies they have been done on single country using time series data like ARDL, okay, and done in Pakistan. And then other countries, they use, other studies, they use panel of countries. So basically, I just summary all this. The studies, they talk about FDI and CO2 emission, like the first one. Okay, so they investigated the relationship between FDI and environment. They use CO2 emissions. So the second study, they use also CO2 emissions, but they look at the impact of institutional quality. So number 3, Algeria, okay, Lacheheb all in 2015, Algeria raising population and economic growth are contributing to the country increasing CO2 emissions. Algeria is also one of the natural resource-based country. So the analyze and the effect that population growth, energy consumption, economic progress, and GDP has a deterioration, okay, so of Lebanon, okay, in this study, OD and Ali 2016. And the last one is the effect of foreign direct investment on the natural environment for examining in the case of GCC countries. Okay, so we have the result, their findings that FDI has benefited effect on environment. So we can see that the first study they have, they mentioned that FDI affect the CO2 emission, increase CO2 emissions. The last one, they say that FDI can help to get environment conservation. So basically, this is because of the inconclusive results. So our study comes to just look at the two parts. The first part is we are looking at the direct and indirect effect of institutional quality, because at the certain level of institutional quality, okay, in the government or in the country they have, institutional quality, they may have positive impact if institutional quality reach to a certain level. So at the second part is FDI, which still is unconclusive, especially in OIC countries, most polluted countries. Okay, so we want to see whether FDI contributes really to a GDP, okay, but green GDP, not normal GDP, and not only CO2 emissions. And then the same thing, institutional quality, their impact on green GDP. So we move to our research gap. Okay, so basically after my discussion on literature review, you can see that there are 3 main gaps that this study want to focus on. So previous studies, they focus on CO2 emissions, greenhouse emissions also. So, and other environment depletion, but the role of green GDP as one indication of production and CO2 emissions, okay, environment. So it's not well discussed in the literature. So this study highlights the role of FDI or green GDP, okay, while previous studies, they only focus more on financial development or on FDI and CO2 emissions. And then the last gap, this study applied nonlinear method. Okay, we are using GMM, but not the normal GMM. We are using the nonlinear GMM by taking into account the level of institutional quality, how they link with green GDP in OIC countries. So basically, this is our model. Okay, so this is our methodology. Okay, so we augmented the model of Hayat 2019, and then we done some modification. Okay, so we included our dependent variable as green GDP, and then we have the dynamic or lag dependent of GDP. Okay, so because we want to see that, because GMM is a dynamic model, and then our first independent variable is FDI. Okay, for indirect investment, followed by institutional quality. And then the X here is the control variables, okay? And then we have the error term, okay, country-specific effect, than time-specific effect. So basically, the first model, as you can see, is linear model. We want to see FDI impact on green GDP, institutional quality impact on green GDP. So our second model, which is the contribution of this study, is we included the nonlinear impact of institutional quality. Okay, so we included the nonlinear impact of institutional quality as institutional quality squared. So this we want to see whether institutional quality at a certain level will have a different impact on green GDP or not. Okay, so we cannot answer the question now. We can look at the result later. Okay, so this is basically the variable that we use in our study. So green GDP is GDP is denotes green GDP of country I in time t. IQ is the institutional quality. We use democracy. Okay, many studies they use democracy as one of the indication of institutional quality. And then IQ2 is the IQ square actually. Okay, so this one is the square of institutional quality. So this indicator or this proxy is one to capture the nonlinear impact of institutional quality on green GDP. And then our second main independent variable is FDI, represents foreign direct investment. The X, as I said, X is vector of control variables. And then V, N, and U is, as I said, country-specific effect, time-specific effect, and the last one is the error term. So basically, we use system GMM, okay, system generalized method of movement. Okay, so we have two types. We have system GMM and difference GMM. So basically, we took system GMM because it's more appropriate for our study. Okay, so the data is mostly taken from the World Bank. Okay, so institutional quality is proxied by democracy, as I said. So it's scale of 100, okay, from 0, complete autocracy. 100 means complete democracy. So the countries are ranging between. Okay, so this data is taken from WGI, World Governance Indicator. Okay, in addition, so openness, so trade openness, we put as a proxy in the control variables. Okay, so we use openness because openness can impact GDP. So green GDP is one of the part of GDP. Okay, so we included the openness. So basically, it's taken from the World Bank, okay, WDI, World Development Indicators. Okay, and then we have investment data, gross domestic capital formation. Okay, we included population also. And then FDI. Okay, so FDI is also taken from the WDI. And then our main dependent variable is green GDP is taken from Marinko-Mendeley data. Okay, so it's 2022. Okay, but the data is only till, sorry, it's 2021. The data is only stopped at 2019. Okay, so basically because of the data availability, we stopped our sample size till 2019. So now we move to the results. So basically those are only the descriptive statistics of our variables. Okay, so the year we have from 2016 till 2000. From 2013 to 2019. Okay, so our green GDP, we have the observation, the mean, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum. Okay, because in the descriptive statistic, we have to use the raw data. Okay, so the raw data, not using the log form. So basically, the sum of the values are very big. Okay, so if you are talking about green GDP, FDI, okay, so it's a big investment also. So population. So basically, we can see that the institutional quality, the mean institutional quality of OIC countries is very low, 29, which is almost 30. Okay, so it's like 30%. 30% is lower than the mean. Okay, so the mean is 50%. So that's why we want to see whether our institutional quality, if they reach a certain level, will have a positive impact, okay, or a different impact. So this is the correlation between the variables. We want to see whether there is an autocorrelation between independent variables or not. So basically, if the correlation is very high, like reaching to 0.9, okay, so it means we have autocorrelation between two variables. So we can see that the highest correlation is 0.66. Okay, so 66% population can impact green GDP. Okay, so FDI we have 0.50, almost 0.49. Okay, impact on or correlated with green GDP. We can see that institution quality is negative 0.13. So means 13% institution quality will deteriorate environment. Okay, green GDP. Investment is a bit low, 0.0, so it's 3%. Trade openness is negative 14%. Okay, so we don't have too much high percentage. That's good for our data observation. So now, why do we include the linear and non-linear impact of institution quality on green GDP? Basically, according to the data we get, okay, on institution quality and green GDP, I did a plot using data. Okay, I want to see the expected result or the expected correlation between institution quality and green GDP. So basically, I just plot in these two variables, institution quality and green GDP, and then I use the Q-fit line. Okay, I want to see how this line fit these two variables. So we can see that there is U shape. We call it U shape. So it means that there is a negative impact association between institution quality and green GDP, and then at a certain point, maybe here, okay, at 30, okay, 3 means 30%, okay? So at 30, you can see that the graph is upward sloping. So we have negative, and then at a certain point, the graph start to go up. So I was expecting that I will have a nonlinear effect based on the data and based on the cluster, okay? So this is using just data visualization using the graph, okay? I want to see the expected result. So basically, the main result will be using GMM. So this is the first table that we have, okay? So result table. So we have our green GDP, this is the lag. So the lag is significant, okay? So it means that our model is dynamic. So system GMM is good. And then we have FDI, our main independent variable. Okay, so you can see that the coefficient is very small, 0.305. Okay, and then it's not significant. Okay, institution quality is negatively impact green GDP and is significant at 5%. Means that institution quality government, they decrease their impact on environment or green GDP. And then we have investment is also negative. We have trade openness is negative and significant. We have population is positive. Okay, so basically, this is the direct relationship or the direct impact of institution quality and FDI on green GDP. So you can see that our model down is free from any problem. So we don't have any. Okay, so it's passed from AR2, okay, Areno and Bond test, okay, and then from Hansen G test. Okay, so it's not significant, so our model is good fit. And then our main discussion will be on the second model, okay, model 2. Okay, so the model 2, we included the square root of our independent variable, which is institution quality. So you see now, institution quality, okay, FDI is still not significant. Okay, so we will pay attention more to the significant variable. So institution quality is negative and significant. So basically, institution quality will decrease our green GDP. Okay, so basically the government, they want to reduce the impact of environment. So basically, if you reduce, you put some restrictions on environment activities, so means that you are reducing your green GDP, your production. Okay, so you are reducing your production, but you are saving your environment. But basically, when there is a nonlinear impact here, okay, institutional quality square at 0.06, almost 0.06, we have this institutional quality is positive and significant at 1%. Okay, so this means that our U-shaped relationship is true. Okay, so basically before, there is a negative impact of institutional quality on environment, but when the institutional quality reach to a certain point, okay, I will mention which point exactly, this institutional quality will have a positive impact on green GDP. So how do we know now what is the turning point? Okay, we call it the turning point. Okay, so we can use the U test in GMM. Okay, U test give us 2.59. Okay, 2.59, which is very significant. Okay, so it means that our institutional quality will have positive impact on green GDP. So using the robustness check, okay, we have used the robustness check, okay, different models. We included investment and we excluded investment, okay? So basically we want to see our control variables, they will have an impact on our model or not. Okay, so you can see that our models are consistent. So basically institutional quality square is always positive and significant at 1%. Okay, 0.05, 0.05, 0.03. Okay, so basically institutional quality is going down, okay, reach at certain level of democracy, go back to positive impact. So basically this shows that institutional quality may have linear and non-linear impact. Okay, so linear impact will not give a whole picture of this institutional quality. So what we need to look at the nonlinear impact of institutional quality. Okay, so basically institutional quality have a negative impact on environment, okay, on green GDP, but at certain point, this institutional quality will have a positive impact. So increasing our institutional quality will lead to high green GDP. So basically, to conclude that the main purpose of this research is to analyze the impact of foreign direct investment, FDI, institutional quality, which is democracy, on green GDP in OIC countries. Okay, so the finding found that there is no statistically significant association between FDI and green GDP, but however, institutional quality, okay, level of democracy is very significant and positive at 1%. So the conclusion that can be drawn from all these results, okay, green GDP will be greater if more countries retain their institutional quality. If those countries, they retain and they improve their institutional quality level of democracy, okay, this will have a positive impact on green GDP. So this finding has important policy implication in OIC countries. Okay, so if the government, they want to tackle the environment degradation, they want to have at the same time the GDP or productivity increase, okay, at the same time maintaining the environment. So they should boost their green GDP, at the same time they should increase their level of institution. Okay, so democracy, rule of law, political stability, all these are under institution quality. Okay, so the government of OIC countries should prioritize maintaining and enhancing the quality of their institution in order to increase and promote green GDP. So basically, FDI may have an impact. Okay, so at the last model here, we can see that FDI already turned to be significant at 5%, but still negative. So basically, if we include institutional quality as our main concern in OIC countries, they can maintain and then they can have good economic growth at the same time with less deterioration of environment. Okay, so this is all of my presentation. Thank you so much.